Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. Dill, Shane Beamer. It feels like a monster offseason for Shane Beamer to get a lot of things fixed, to get a lot of things right. And Dill, this is one of those seasons where it gets so bad, specifically on offense, that I don't even know if we're done seeing the significant changes that are going to come to the South Carolina offense. Now, I think you got the main two problems addressed, right? Lonnie Teasley on the offensive line, Mike Shula as the offensive coordinator. Those two were the glaring must need to fix aspects about this South Carolina offense going into the 2026 year. But Dill, I guess I'll ask you two things in a second. Number one, do you think we're done with the coaching staff changes? Number two, and I think this might be more important, Dill, what are the changes that South Carolina makes to their roster? As much as we want to get up here and get after Mike Shula, and deservingly so, and get after Lonnie Teasley, and deservingly so, I'm looking at this South Carolina roster and say that there are some position groups that we need to significantly go out and address during that transfer portal period. That's more the conversation I want to get into, because if you're Shane Beamer, you got to marry them both. You got to go get an offensive coordinator that you think's going to score points, but you got to give him the Jimmies and Joes to go out and score points as well. Before we get into it, as always, I number one, shout out the South Carolina fans. They let it rip yesterday when we were talking about offensive coordinator candidates. Number two, Dill, you know me. This is arguably some of my favorite conversations to have. Like, I get to put on my make-believe general manager cap on and say, hey, let's talk about some changes that we want to see from the South Carolina offense from a personnel standpoint. And I promise you, if you're a South Carolina fan listening to the boys on a Monday night, chances are you got some takes too. Let it fly in the comment section. Appreciate you guys. Y'all do enjoy the content. Consider subscribing to the channel. And Dill, without further ado, here's what I'll ask you first. Do you think this is the last of the changes from a coaching staff standpoint that we're going to see Shane Beamer make?
No, and I don't think there's going to be changes on defense. I think
Oh,
that'd be
God,
like
no.
absurd. That's a really good staff. They're
Yeah,
playing really
no.
well, even losing all the talent they lost last
Yeah.
year. But
Hey,
on
Phil,
offense,
if there's anything I can, I'm sorry to interrupt you this early. That's totally on me. If there's anything that I took away from 2025 is I feel even more strongly about you got a money defensive staff, and now your job is to keep that staff going into 2026.
there's one guy who's safe on offense though, and that's probably Mike Furry at the wide
Wide
receiver.
receivers, yeah, I think so.
Who else is
So,
safe? I mean, Sean Elliott, I don't know that he's safe at this point. I frankly, I don't know exactly what his role like. Are they just going to demote him back to tight ends?
I think so.
Run game coordinator job. It's not like he was doing a great job doing that either. So I
Yeah.
look, there's one guy who's
Yeah.
safe, and that's the wide receivers coach. Because again, that's probably the one position you look forward to and be like, well, there's still something there. Like these freshmen, they've played okay. And again, we haven't seen them get enough chances, obviously, because everything else is broken. But yeah, the wide receivers coach is safe. Everyone else, I wouldn't
Dill,
be.
I would argue, and I think I agree with you with Sean Elliott. And I know a lot of the South Carolina fans like Sean Elliott and wouldn't mind seeing him on the coaching staff in 2026. I think the struggle here is you're going to bring a new offensive coordinator in. Is Sean Elliott going to be retained as the run game coordinator? Is he going to be okay just getting demoted back to tight ends coach? We're not sure. I do agree with you with Coach Fury. Dude, we don't talk enough about it. I mean, the offense has been so anemic in general. The Nick Harbor 2 years ago was just a really big, fast kid. Didn't know the heck he was doing at the wide receiver spot. He's blossomed, man. Like, I think you've seen Nick Harbor, although not necessarily getting the opportunity to really show us what he can do, you've seen really good things. Vandrevius Jacobs, this was a guy that has emerged as well. You mentioned the freshman wide receivers who you love. You want to keep those guys with this program. I kind of agree with you. Coach Fear is probably the only guy that I would argue has done a good enough job to maintain on this coaching staff in 2026. All right, personnel standpoint, because this is really important. Number one, gut feeling, and nobody even knows. I don't even think Shane Beamer knows what the future holds. LaNorris Sellers, do we see him back with South Carolina in 2026? Because this to me, as I'm trying to think of offensive coordinator candidates, it's a really important conversation because they'll, at least in my opinion, if LaNorris Sellers is still with this South Carolina team going into next year, that probably impacts what offensive coordinator hire you're going to go out and make. And if he's not, you might be looking for an offensive coordinator that can bring a quarterback with him. But I want to ask you, vibe check, LaNorris Sellers back at South Carolina. How are we feeling about it?
I'd be kind of surprised, to be very
Me
honest.
too,
And
I think.
honestly, from both sides, because as much as like, yeah, I don't think the pieces have been around them. I don't know. LaNorris Sellers probably hasn't played well enough either. Like
Yeah,
you
agreed.
still haven't probably seen his progression in terms of like being able to sit in the pocket and navigate. Yeah. He's still like, yeah, he does back up a lot. He doesn't really step
to
up.
To be fair,
offensive line out a ton.
There have not been a ton of clean pockets for LaNorris Sellers.
No, but that's part of it. Because again, even
Okay.
Shane Beamer said it. He's like, look, there's probably things our quarterback can do in terms of helping our offensive line. And again, it obviously starts up front. That's like one that I don't even exactly know where you go with that unit, because I don't know that you really have anyone who's playable at this point.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised. I'd be very surprised, I guess I'd say, if LaNorris Sellers is back from, frankly, both perspectives, like both the team and him. It just, this year didn't work. It's probably time for everyone to have a bit of a clean start. Honestly.
Okay, so I would disagree with that. I would, at this point, like I continue to see LaNorris Sellers mocked in the first round. And I know that production doesn't match up with what we're seeing him mocked in the NFL draft with, but I mean, Anthony Richardson went top 5 in the NFL draft a couple of years ago, and Anthony Richardson wasn't a very good quarterback. So you never know what these NFL GMs are going to do. I will push back and say, look, if LaNorris wants to come back, I'm taking him back. I don't think you have an answer at quarterback on your roster right now. I don't want to play roulette at the quarterback position in the portal. If LaNorris Sellers wants to come back, I think you don't have to. You gladly take him back for one more year, but you have to make sure that you bring an offensive coordinator that is actually going to build the offense around his skill set. And you got to make sure
this is so unique in like his ability, I think, to operate anything else besides what I think he'd be really good at. I don't know if it's quite there yet. So to me, it's like you kind of going to come in with a fresh start at the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
I'd be okay kind of just like resetting things, because you got to come in and like big changes, I feel like.
Okay, so here's the argument against LaNorris Sellers, because I think there are South Carolina fans that share your view. I will repeat my take, and I don't think if he wants to come back, you don't let kid like him walk. My personal take. If he does decide to go somewhere else and you don't retain him, whether he goes to the NFL draft, transfer portal, wherever he goes, you do have a lot of funny money, man. That would have been earmarked to which. Look, I think we all know that there's a lot of aspects of this offense that we can address from a personnel standpoint, which goes to our next conversation. Is it's regardless if LaNorris Sellers comes back or you go to the transfer portal and grab a quarterback, nothing will work unless you fix this offensive line. Number one is the offensive line coach. And I think there are plenty of quality offensive line coaches that could come in and right the ship. And I really do think that's where it starts. But number two, the personnel is there's not been a single player on the South Carolina offensive line that I think has earned the right to start a football game in 2026. That's not saying that Josiah Thompson might not become a starting caliber left tackle in 2026, because we've seen him play really quality football at times. He hasn't earned the right to have it. The consistency hasn't been close. You can say that with every single guy on this offensive line. How many
that's where you get into it's so hard at this point, because again, like they certainly have their issues winning one-on-one matchups, but there's just like the lack of continuity, the lack of like, feeling like they can play well as a unit. Again, that's certainly why Lonnie Teasley no longer has a job, but that's where you wonder, is it like, are they just fundamentally like awful football players, or is there just something like their coaching staff just couldn't get anything out of them really? And again, I think there's probably some part of the latter. Like it's just like when you're that bad and you're that consistently bad and it doesn't matter who's in, it just looks horrible. Yeah. I do wonder, like, could an offensive line coach who maybe has a bit of a different scheme, maybe can simplify it? Again, I don't exactly know.
So let me be very clear about one thing. Is Shane Beamer willing to let his job ride on this offensive line figuring it out in 2026? Like, if I'm Shane Beamer, I'm going out and getting at least 3 guys that I think are starting caliber offense.
I mean, the problem is he did it. He did it this year too. I mean, they took a lot of kids out of the portal who played a lot of football.
And guess who that's on, though? Guess who that's on? It's Lonnie Teasley, right? It's either you evaluated really poorly or you just did not coach well enough. Well, one of the two, but the both fingers are, and I don't mean to pile on Lonnie Teasley. It sounds kind of mean of me. That's kind of what we're looking at here. And so so let me get something clear. Are you saying that South Carolina does not need to go to the portal to address the offensive line?
No, they 100% do.
Okay.
Again, I just wonder like what these players, because again, I feel like I've seen it, like Josiah Thompson's played decent football. Case and Henry, I've seen play decent football. Like to me, I do wonder if you just get a better coach in, like how much natural improvement you get. Again, I just don't see it being feasible to get like 5 new starters.
Florida State did, and it worked.
I guess that is true.
It's hard. It's really hard to do. We say it all the time.
It's also not sustainable. That's obviously their big issue. It's like you do it once, then it becomes a real problem in terms of like, okay, what is Shane Beamer going to sell moving forward to any kid he's going to recruit out of high school?
No, see, I disagree with that because it's not like they've done this consistently. This is just a certain year where it's like you need wholesale change. In fact, I think what you saw to them on the trail is like, look, you got opportunity to come in and start right away if you're good enough because we're looking for bodies who are good enough. It's the most important position for them to get right. And this is why we make such a big deal when you land 4-star bodies in the summer on the offensive line, because this position is not easy to address in the portal. There's just not a ton of starting caliber tackles that you're going to see in the transfer portal that can plug and play start in the SEC. That is part of the reason why I'm a Gus Malzahn, Herb Hand guy, because Herb Hand went to Florida State, and I thought he did a master class. He hit on every single offensive lineman that he brought in from the portal has been a quality starter for Florida State. Like, can you bring Gus Malzahn up to Columbia? Can you bring Herb Hand with them? And can Herb Hand do the same thing? But he also has some young guys that you can build around, like Shed Surratt. There's a reason he's getting opportunities as a freshman. And Trevon Baugh shows you could say this for every offensive lineman. I thought Josiah Thompson was actually pretty damn good at a certain point, but it's like the consistency's been a joke. I think you need all of these guys. And sorry, I'm a little rambling now. That's why if I'm Shane Beamer, I'm bringing in 4 or 5 bodies that I think are starting caliber, because I think you got to make these kids earn the right to play for South Carolina in 2026, because nobody has consistently earned that right this year. They're just forced to keep trotting them out there. How about this? I'll ask you this: the defensive outlook, like this is important too. What do you see on this South Carolina defense? What's the vibe of the South Carolina defense going into 2026? How much work needs to be done and where? GM hat is on your head. I'll put you on the spot.
There's certainly an element of work to be done. I mean, you do have some old guys, especially on that defensive line, and you got to replace a lot of guys who are kind of going to age out a little bit, like Nick Barrett, Monkel Goodwin have been really consistent.
Yeah.
I don't know. What are like Troy Pikes? I'm excited about as a younger player who will, I'm sure, be back and be a part of this. But like, how much of a step are you getting from Xavier Hardy? Like those type of guys.
Gabe Brownlow playing good ball. Like
he's playing good ball. Like, but again, you kind of have right now 2 guys who are coming back that you kind of know something about. And then what do you get from like your development with these younger guys? And again, we've seen. Frankly, I'm a little more comfortable about what that can be because we've seen it now with this defense. Like, yeah, you age out linebackers, you get 2 new guys in, play really well. Like Justin O and Fred Johnson, I think have been awesome for the most part. I have the same thing with the secondary. You lose really good players, guys step up and play really good for the South Carolina team.
Yeah, I mean, I in the complete opposite way. I just
it's supplementing. Like it's just going to be a normal run in the mill supplementing through the portal, just like I think you'll do every year. Like I don't really see anywhere that there needs to be wholesale changes, if you will. It's just going to be a classic. Yeah, you maybe do need another cornerback.
Can I ask you a question? Would you go grab another wide receiver? Sorry, I'm backtracking.
No, why? Why would you?
What if Nick Carter goes to the NFL?
If there's a good enough kid who wants to be there, sure, but I don't think it's like one I'm looking at that I'd be super aggressive in.
Yeah, I think it's one of those conversations where you just got to figure out where you want to allocate your resources, right? I feel pretty good about where the wide receiver room is going to be at. And there's no way I'm running it back in 2026 without significantly throwing money at the offensive line. Can I throw one more offensive coordinator name out real quick? if a South Carolina fan has made it 15 minutes in. Cade Bell at Pitt. Though I'm kind of pissed at myself that I did not talk about him yesterday afternoon. He's awesome. And we were talking about coordinators that have young quarterbacks that they can bring with them. This kid's got a true freshman, 3-star quarterback from the state of Ohio who I think is playing really good football. I've only watched him a couple of games, most notably on the road at Florida State. He diced him up. Now, I don't know how impressive dicing up Florida State's defense is, but I thought this kid looked like a gamer. Cade Bell has, look, Pat Narduzzi doesn't like scoring points. Cade Bell's come to Pitt, and he's scoring points, and he's doing it with the true freshman quarterback that I think's a guy. You talk about one of those OC quarterback packages that really could get things rolling. You might be looking at that with Pitt. The one concern there, doesn't run the ball. Doesn't like to run the ball, doesn't run the ball well. Maybe a minor concern, especially when you go into the SEC, where I think it is very, very important to have some sort of run game, because you can get away with it in the ACC because outside of certain programs, you don't have dominant pass rushing presences. Every week in the SEC, you're going to see NFL dudes rushing the passer. You have to have a run game to slow those guys down. That's my one concern about Cade Bell, but he's worth putting on the list. I'm still Gus Malzahn or bust. Gus Malzahn, Herb Hand, with LaNorris Sellers coming back, South Carolina natty.
You need some younger coaches. I don't know why you're all fixated on these old men,
because Gus Malzahn. I don't know. Why do you give a damn how old they are if they're scoring points?
Because it's I think you need a bit of a reset. I don't know that you want. I don't know that frankly it's working at FSU. I think you can do some things like scoring the ball.
Wait, what?
But it's not like you're building any sort of sustainable foundation at Florida State. And again, all coaches that has to fall.
That's not Mike Norvell's
at a very low level.
No. But you're blaming Gus Malzahn for Mike Norvell recruiting poorly.
Why is it all Mike? Everybody.
Because Gus Malzahn's been there for 8 months. He's recruited actually pretty damn well in his short stint at Florida State. He's not got an opportunity to.
Do you think Herb Hand's going to bring in enough talent in that offensive line? I have zero faith in him. That is a disaster what's going on with their offensive line pipeline. I just have no faith in that sort of coach at this point in where South Carolina is at. Give me a coach cold Nicky. Get me someone younger, someone hungrier, because I don't like where Florida State is. I think there's a reason certain coaches chose that program, and it's because they don't ask the same things that Shane Beamer should be asking of his coordinators and his position coaches. They should be
I think that's fair.
Extreme aggression on the trail. Mike Norvell just doesn't ask that. He's never asked that of his coaches, and I kind of wonder if that's a reason that a job appealed to certain coaches.
I don't think you're off. I don't agree with you often. I don't hate that. I think there might be a reason Gus Malzahn, because it does feel like it's a little bit of an early retirement for him. Hey, I still like calling plays, still like playing Madden a little bit. And I still like the paycheck a little bit too, but I'm not sure if I want to be all. That's why he left the head coaching job at UCF. And you are right. I know Gus Malzahn doesn't have a heavy hand on the trail. Okay, I don't hate that. But the one thing I do like about Gus Malzahn is he did turn that sucker around in 1 year. It's substantially so.
I know they're going to have a losing record at the end of the day, and I'm not putting that on.
I can't believe that is so woefully unfair that you are putting that on Gus. All Gus Malzahn's doing for the most part scoring points with what I don't even think is a very good roster, although they did hit on some transfer portal additions. I think Gus Malzahn rocks. He scores points everywhere he goes. All right. We'll debate this plenty over the next couple of months. The boys clearly don't disagree. I kind of got off the rails on the fellas a little bit. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.